Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Joshua. This is the new boxing fight that is potentially on the table for the Predator, and the options just keep rolling in. Listen, as we know, Francis Ngannou, the Predator, the heavyweight champion of the world, vacated the belt and walked away from the UFC to test the open market, to try and make as much money as he can, right? And the biggest fight that was on the table for him, of course, was with Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King, the man who was at the top of boxing alongside Alexander Usyk. They're the two heavyweight champs. And Tyson Fury called him out recently, of course, after one of his fights. They met each other in the ring. Tyson said, "Have you got a big Tory?" Francis had no idea what he was talking about. But since the Predator left the UFC, Tyson once again called him out, said 4-ounce gloves in a cage with a spicy referee like Mike Tyson. Now, since then, Eddie Hearn, who is the promoter of Anthony Joshua, he has come out and he's thrown Anthony Joshua's name into the mix as a potential opponent for Francis Ngannou. And I got to say, if I'm managing Francis Ngannou, that is the boxing fight to take. Now, I'm going to give you exactly why. Trust me, this makes a lot of sense. It makes more sense than the Tyson Fury fight. But the Tyson Fury fight will also be there. But still, Eddie Hearn, he was on the Ariel Helwani show, and he said, look, listen, I've talked to Francis Ngannou. I think he's an outstanding man, but I always talk too much, and I don't want to talk too much about this and what was said. But the meeting was maybe last week. We didn't go too deeply into stuff, but I respect him greatly for the way that he's handled his career, to the point where now he's in a fantastic position. He has a new ocean to navigate, which is a lot more rocky than the world of MMA and the UFC. He continued, he's in the wild west of boxing. We'll see what happens. For me, I would love to be involved in his career. The Anthony Joshua fight is probably one of the biggest fights that could be made across any kind of sport. Obviously, the Tyson Fury fight is there for him as well. I was pretty captivated by him. I'm not a massive MMA fan, but I respect what he has done there. And then he finished off by saying he has a golden opportunity now to really solidify himself for many, many generations to come in terms of wealth through being involved in an event that will be one of the biggest in fight sports history. For his first boxing match, I think he should fight Anthony Joshua. Now, the first thing to say is, of course, Eddie Hearn's going to say that because he manages or promotes, should I say, Anthony Joshua. He promotes Anthony Joshua. So if he makes the fight with Francis Ngannou, then he's involved. He's not involved with Tyson Fury. So he wouldn't get a cut out of that. But still, listen, I'm not hating on that. I'm just saying that's why he's suggesting that. I'll be honest, if I was Francis Ngannou, I would be listening to Eddie Hearn, because that makes all the sense. It makes more sense, should I say, than Tyson Fury. Maybe not all the sense, right? Doesn't make all the sense, but it makes a bit more sense than Tyson Fury. Why? Well, let me tell you. First of all, Francis is getting all kinds of offers. Dillian Whyte made an offer, and now we've got Anthony Joshua potentially on the table, and we know that Tyson did as well. Tyson Fury is 6'9" with a massive reach and has been fighting all of his life, boxing all of his life. And he's just a bad stylistic matchup. Why? Because he's so technical, he's so long, and he's got such great movement, and the speed is ridiculous. As we know, a lot of feints, a lot of movement. Okay, he doesn't move like a guy that's overweight and that big. Tyson Fury is a gigantic person. He's kind of overweight. He doesn't look like an athlete, but my God, is he fast. He's got amazing technique, and the hand speed is ridiculous. And of course, he can punch very, very hard as well. So for Francis Ngannou, that wouldn't be a very good fight. You never know. Francis could catch him. I've been over this before. We're not talking about this. Francis could catch him, but more than likely, he would lose that fight. And then that would be it. That would be the foray into boxing done. Because as Eddie Hearn said to Ariel, the value is in the unknown. And he's absolutely right. It is the unknown. That is what captures people's imagination. Could the heavyweight champion, a massive monster of a man with ridiculous punching power, could he catch the heavyweight boxing champion of the world and knock him out unconscious? Wow, I want to see this, because last time we saw it against Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, Conor gave a good account of himself. If Francis could do half as good as that, but with the power he's got, maybe he gets a knockout. But more than likely, not very likely against Tyson Fury. But, and this is not an insult to Anthony Joshua. I'm a big fan of Anthony Joshua. He's flown the flag for British boxing for many, many years. But when it comes to styles, and as we know, styles make fights, He's not the kind of fighter that Tyson Fury is. Now, I don't mean that he's not a good fighter. I'm just saying he's got a different style. He's much more static. He's not as fast. He doesn't use as many feints. Look at what Alexander Usyk did to Anthony Joshua. Not once, but twice in a row. The first time he schooled him, the second time was more competitive. Anthony Joshua had a better game plan and things like that. But he still got beaten twice. And that's a good thing to think as well, because Joshua's just lost 2 fights in a row, mentally not in the same place. Maybe the passion, the fire isn't burning quite as strongly. And then you go back a couple of fights ago as well. He was knocked out maybe a few fights ago, pardon me. He was knocked out by Andy Ruiz. Now, granted, he avenged that loss, right? In style, mind you. But still, a knockout loss to Andy Ruiz. Just lost to Alexander Usyk twice. But he's still very marketable. It's still Anthony Joshua. He still sells out massive, massive stadiums and venues all over the world. You can put that fight up with Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou anywhere on this planet and it will sell out. Saudi Arabia would pay an insane amount of money. Anywhere would, right? It's a huge fight. And that is a fight that Francis Ngannou could potentially win because, as I say, because of the style. Now, Anthony Joshua, of course, is the better boxer, but he's been doing this for a long time. As I said a moment ago, has the fire gone out? The knockout over Ruiz, the 2 decisions, the beatdowns from Alexander Usyk. Is he the same guy? And he's not as fast. He doesn't have a slick movement. He doesn't dance around, nothing like Tyson Fury does. The reason I'm saying that is because Joshua potentially will be there to get caught off a gigantic shot of Francis Ngannou, and could you imagine it? Francis Ngannou knocks out Anthony Joshua. That is not that unlikely. He would be the underdog. Of course he would. Anthony Joshua would be a massive favourite in that fight. But that is not beyond the realms of possibility. Neither is knocking out Tyson Fury. But I think the likelihood of knocking out Anthony Joshua is far more likely. Ngannou's already talking to Eddie Hearn. There's a potential that this fight goes down because Ngannou is getting all kinds of options, as I said, and he's going to take one of them. And if he has a good manager, he goes against Anthony Joshua. He goes out there. If he pulls it off, if he gets the job done, he knocks out Anthony Joshua. All of a sudden, he is validated in the world of boxing. And then he fights Tyson Fury. The fight would be 5 times as big. Okay, and that's a real situation. That is a very likely situation. Okay, it would be tough for Francis to do that, but it's not out of this world. And against Tyson Fury, after he's knocked out Anthony Joshua with the rivalry that they had, that fight would just be so much bigger. So that is the way to do it, right? Number one, if he fights Anthony Joshua, he'll make a fortune, right? That would be a gigantic payday. But then if he pulls it off, if he pulls it off, then the fight with bloody Fury is right there at the fingertips and it will be done. It will be sold. It will be a done deal. My God, could you imagine? If you are Francis Ngannou, you are in a very good position right now because they're all calling him out. As I said, Dillian White, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. It turns out if you're British and you're a heavyweight boxer, you've probably got your manager calling out to Francis Ngannou to make that fight. Anyway, what do you think about that? Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou. Am I out of my mind? Am I getting a little excited? Am I giving Francis too much credit? Or would he catch him? I think there's a good potential. Well, not a good potential. There's a potential. There's a chance. There is a scenario where Francis might catch him because he's static. He's not as quick. He doesn't move as much. And he's getting older. He's getting on. And the losses have started to come in. Anyway, just some thoughts on that whole situation. Let me know what you think. Feel free to come at me in the comments, to correct me, to say that I'm out of my goddamn mind, to insult me to your heart's desire. Because maybe I am getting a little carried away, but still, let me know in the comments, subscribe, ring the bell. I'll see you soon.